Amazing revelation. I was a devout Jehovah's Witness for 25 years until I exposed its shocking truths. Jessica's heart raced as she sat at the dining table, her two children chattering about school, blissfully unaware of the cracks beginning to show in their mother's facade. For the past 25 years, the world of Jehovah's Witnesses had been her everything, a blueprint of faith and family that often bordered on the perfect. But now, as she stirred the green beans simmering in the pot, an unsettling thought crept into her mind: what if everything she believed was built on an unstable foundation? On the surface, she maintained her smile as dutifully as she fulfilled her role as a teacher. But beneath her calm exterior, a storm brewed. Memories flooded back: her recent encounter with Emily, an old friend who had left the organization. Their conversation had turned so innocuous before veering into a discussion about the struggles of faith, igniting a spark of doubt in Jessica as she recalled Emily's words. Would she ever dare to question the teachings that had comforted her for so long? In the soft glow of the kitchen lights, Jessica felt her resolve waver. Was loyalty to her community worth sacrificing her right to seek the truth? Every week at the Kingdom Hall, she had revered the elders, yet now she found herself reflecting on Emily's stories. They resonated painfully within her, a growing discontent gnawing at her core. Could those years of unwavering faith have been blind loyalty? As she washed the dishes, Jessica's mind raced. What if her questioning led her down a path she could not return from? A path that would alienate her from her husband, her friends, her entire life. The tension thickened. Her thoughts turned dark as images filled her mind: people shunned, families divided. She had seen it but never truly confronted it. The fear of isolation clawed at her insides, tightening with each fleeting glance toward her children. They represented her heartbeat, yet standing at this impasse made her wonder if she was becoming a stranger to them by merely considering the truth behind her faith. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue in her turmoil. The chilling revelations from Tom, a former elder who had witnessed the darker side of their faith, haunted her. Stories of authoritarian silence, of lives wasted due to fear, shook her to her core. Could she remain complicit in a system that allowed such pain? Each detail he recounted echoed in her ears, fueling a flame of indignation flaring within her. Jessica clenched her hands into fists, caught between the desire to protect her family and her own growing need for honesty. Her daughter, curious and perceptive, began to ask questions that cut deeper than a knife, challenging the very foundation of their beliefs. Jessica's inner anguish became unbearable. Did she dare risk everything, a marriage built on shared faith, the love of her children, all for this burgeoning quest for what was true? With every passing moment, the stakes heightened, and Jessica found herself standing at a precipice, teetering between two lives. The choice loomed, undeniable yet terrifying: confront her fears or remain shackled to comfortable ignorance. And as she glanced once more at that family photograph on the wall, her children's smiles frozen in time, an unshakable feeling settled in her stomach. The clock was ticking, and soon enough, she would have to decide. Jessica awoke the next morning with a heaviness that clung to her like a damp blanket. The sunlight streamed through her curtains, illuminating the room, still and unaware of the chaos within her. Her mind raced through the conversations from the past days like a reel in overdrive, each memory a thread tangling into a complex web of doubt. She brewed her coffee mechanically, her hands trembling slightly as the aroma filled the air, a comfort she had relied upon for years. Yet this morning, even the rich scent couldn't drown out the inner tumult. As she sipped, she couldn't shake the nagging thought of Tom's words, echoing ominously in her mind. Accountability. His voice resonated with a chilling clarity that demanded more than acknowledgement. It inspired deliberation on her life choices. At school, she sat at her desk, surrounded by the playful chatter of her students. Their innocent laughter turned into background noise as she became lost in her thoughts. The classroom felt both familiar and disconcerting, caught in a paradox where her dual roles as a teacher and a mother blurred. A student raised their hand, snapping her back. She engaged, but her mind was elsewhere, rehearsing a speech she had never planned but desperately needed. During her lunch break, she pulled out her phone, an impulsive decision fueled by uncertainty. In the dim light of the teacher's lounge, she began searching for forums discussing the experiences of former Jehovah's Witnesses. Each account she stumbled upon resonated shockingly close to her own confusion and fear. She felt a mixture of relief and horror. These were real people, living testimonies of a similar struggle. Could their paths predict hers? The clock ticked ominously, breaking her concentration, and she glanced at the time, a palpable reminder of her responsibilities waiting beyond the walls of the sanctuary. The moment she pushed through the school doors, the outside world hit her like a gust of cold wind. Families walked by, children laughing as they dashed to meet their parents. How could they be so carefree? Jessica's heart twisted at the thought that maybe, just maybe, she was about to become one of the outcasts she feared. At home, dinner was a quiet affair. The children were bickering over the television remote while her husband, Mark, was engrossed in his phone. The atmosphere felt stifled by unspoken words, each bite she took echoing the weight of her silence. "Mom, can we watch my show?" her daughter asked, breaking the tension. "Sure," Jessica replied absent-mindedly, her mind alight with questions bigger than what program to select. She lost herself in thought about her daughter's future, considering if staying in the faith was truly the best option for her family. Her gaze lingered on the screen, but her thoughts were far beyond cartoons. As night fell, she sat at the edge of her bed, phone in hand. The digital realm offered a deceptive sense of companionship wrapped in anonymity. Just then, an idea sparked. Perhaps there was a way forward, an approach that could lead her to personal empowerment regardless of the path chosen. She could attend a support group anonymously, maybe steer clear of a confrontation for now, but begin exploring her options. Feeling a surge of determination, Jessica chose to act. She opened a link to a local support group where people aged with similar challenges shared their experiences in a safe space. Could venturing into this world be her first step towards liberation? With her heart pounding, she typed out a message of interest. The click sent shivers down her spine. The time had come to face not just her faith, but the woman waiting to emerge on the other side of indecision. As she lay down that night, her thoughts buzzing with possibilities and uncertainties, one realization settled deep within her: unraveling the truth would be more complex than she ever imagined. What awaited her in that meeting? Would it bring clarity or further confusion? The question loomed. Was she ready to finally confront the unknown? Jessica awoke the next morning, a sense of determination prickling at the edges of her mind. The message she had sent to the support group now felt like a lifeline, its impact resonating in her thoughts. With every sip of coffee, she envisioned the door she was teetering before, one that could either shut her into a life she had always known or fling open wide, revealing paths unknown. At school, the thrill of her intent simmered beneath a facade of routine. As she watched her students engage in their work, their heads bent low in concentration, she was struck by a realization: they were fearlessly exploring their world, testing limits. She couldn't help but admire their courage, an innocence stuck against her own rising trepidation. Suddenly, a distant memory flickered across her consciousness, the daring spirit she had harbored as a child, one that questioned norms. Had it languished in the shadows of conformity all these years? She held onto that memory like an anchor, contemplating how that adventurous essence had been silenced under the weight of expectation. It was time to reclaim that sense of exploration and autonomy, she decided. As part of her growing resolve, Jessica sought ways to engage her students more actively. She introduced discussions surrounding creativity and critical thinking. Her lessons transformed, as she called upon them to explore themes that extended beyond textbooks, themes that encouraged them to voice their thoughts, challenging established views. This shift invigorated her teaching style, igniting a spark she hadn't felt in years. Each time she witnessed their ideas blossoming, hers followed suit. Yet, the walls of her home loomed darker that evening. Seated at the dinner table under an air thick with expectation, Jessica noticed the silence had shifted. Mark, sitting opposite, looked up from his phone, his brow furrowed with concern. "You've seemed distant lately," he remarked, breaking the monotony. "Is everything okay?" To answer truthfully demanded a weight she hadn't anticipated. "There's just a lot on my mind," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Was it time to confide in him? The words tussled in her throat, but fear of the vulnerability coursing through her stifled them. How could she express the shifting ambitions growing within her? Mark's hand found hers, a gesture that felt both stabilizing and unsettling. The dichotomy within her heart surged forth, part of her craved his support while another feared judgment. Jessica's world was expanding, yet here she was, fearing the outcomes of her choices might create a rift in their life together. Later that night, in the solitude of her room, Jessica stared into the mirror. The woman looking back bore the weight of unexpressed fears but was tempered with a flicker of newfound conviction. She recalled stories she'd read online about individuals who had stepped away from their faith. Each story had been a thread, weaving a fabric of resilience and hope, a community she longed to connect with. Fueled by her thoughts, she scoured the internet for resources and perspectives that might better prepare her for the group meeting. What shaped individuals like her into who they had become? This search ignited a sense of adventure that reminded her of her students' curiosity. The day of the meeting arrived, the hours creeping past in a tantalizing dance of anticipation and dread. Would the faces she encountered share her struggles? Would their stories illuminate a path for her own transformation? Jessica paced her living room, anxiety tightening in her chest like a vice. Each tick of the clock echoed like a drum, marking the approach of a pivotal moment. With her heart racing, she took a deep breath and reminded herself, this was about her discovery and reclamation of self. Clarity or conflict, she needed to face this rite of passage. As she opened the door and stepped into the night, thoughts clamored for attention. Was she ready to embrace the revelations waiting for her within that room? Could this be the beginning of her true journey? Jessica stood at the entrance of the building where the support group gathered, the chill of the evening air contrasting sharply with the warmth of the new resolve coursing through her. Each step towards the door felt like wading through molasses as memories of apprehension draped themselves over her shoulders. She was acutely aware of the multitude of emotions colliding inside her, fear of judgment, a longing for connection, and a pulse of excitement for what lay ahead. Inside, the room buzzed with muted conversations. Faces filled with curiosity and understanding greeted her. As she entered, she was met with nods and warm smiles and unspoken acknowledgement that they were all here for similar reasons, seeking paths away from their past. After a hesitant moment, she found a seat in a semicircle of folding chairs, positioning herself between two individuals who exuded a reassuring aura of encouragement. Her mind raced. How would she introduce herself? Would they perceive her as just another voice lost in conformity? Deep down, she knew she had to shed her old skin and reveal the vibrant essence she had suppressed for far too long. Then, one by one, stories began to unfold around her. Vulnerabilities were shared, tears were shed, yet laughter punctuated the raw honesty that filled the space. Each account resonated with her in profound ways. A woman discussed her experience of feeling betrayed by a framework she had once trusted implicitly. Another man spoke of the isolation that stemmed from diverging paths from loved ones. Each story ignited a flicker of recognition within Jessica, underscoring both the pain and strength resultant from such seismic shifts in life. As Jessica listened, questions flitted through her mind, a barrage of self-reflection lying beneath the surface. What had driven her to accept the beliefs that had shaped her identity? Why had she silenced her innate yearning for exploration for so long? Awash in the intensity of her introspection, she felt an empowering surge grip her heart, a determination to find clarity among the chaos of her past. She opened her mouth to speak. When her turn arrived, Jessica took a breath, anchoring herself to the courage she had witnessed. "Hello, I'm Jessica. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 25 years, she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I've realized I'm not just stepping out of a belief system, but reclaiming my own voice." The words poured from her as she shared the weight of her journey, recounting moments of doubt that had morphed into clarity, a realization that the essence of herself had aligned unfavorably with the doctrines she had followed. An energized question bubbled within her, a burning inquiry that begged for articulation. Could she unearth aspects of her identity that were hidden beneath layers of conformity? As she concluded her narrative, she was met with a chorus of affirming nods. Within the safety of the group's shared ethos, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a delicate thread of understanding woven between her history and theirs. Each individual reflected fragments of her own experience, amplifying the message that she was not alone in this quest for rediscovery. Nevertheless, as deep as the connection felt, a shadow flickered at the edges of her heart. Mark's lingering concern resurfaced. Would he understand her evolving identity? Jessica knew this was only the beginning, and she needed to confront the truth of her personal evolution, not only within herself but also with Mark. As the meeting progressed, her brain whirred with possible strategies to approach the conversation. Would he resist her newfound autonomy? Could she illuminate the path she was traversing? The idea of rejection lingered dangerously close as she weighed the need for transparency against the fear of misunderstanding. Exiting the warmth of the gathering felt surreal. Refreshed yet anxious, it was clear that this experience had sparked a personal renaissance. The night air enveloped her as she walked, a gentle reminder of the ongoing journey she had embraced. But a decision loomed ahead. How would she share this transformation with Mark? The time had come to face the moment of truth where her two worlds would intersect. With newfound determination ignited, she resolved that honest dialogue could be the bridge she needed to cross. As she neared home, her heart raced, carrying the weight of that imperative conversation, one that could either strengthen their connection or fracture it. Could she summon the courage to reveal her revelations, her desires, and ultimately her newfound self? The door to her life as she knew it stood before her. She inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of determination as she grasped the handle, ready for the liberation or confrontation that lay just beyond it. Could this pivotal moment catalyze deeper change in both her life and her relationship? Jessica stepped across the threshold, the faint sounds of the night falling silent behind her. Each corner of her home, usually a sanctuary, now felt like an arena. She could already picture Mark in the living room, absorbed in his book, oblivious to the storm brewing within her. Her heart raced, the anticipation morphing into a knot of anxiety as she envisioned how their conversation would unfold. "Okay, focus," she whispered to herself, summoning the courage she had felt during the meeting. She had opened her heart among strangers, sharing the essence of her transformation. Now, the stakes felt immeasurably higher. This was no longer a community of listeners, this was Mark, her partner. The man who had loved her despite the restrictions of their former life. Would he see her as the same person he once cherished? As she walked through the hallway, memories flashed before her. The delicate moments they shared, the laughter echoing around the kitchen, each vivid recollection a double-edged sword, reminding her of what they had while urging her to express who she was becoming. "Jessica." Mark's voice broke through her reverie. "You're home." He emerged from the shadows of the living room, a bright smile softening the edges of her worry for just a moment. How was it? She hesitated, the weight of her truth hanging heavily on her tongue. It was eye-opening, she replied, careful with each word, weighing the delicate act of confession against the stakes of potential fallout. His brows furrowed as he caught the tension in her voice. Good eye-opening or bad? Both, I guess. The softness in his eyes made her heart flutter, a reminder of their bond rather than the barriers she now felt between them. I want to talk to you about something important. He nodded, a hint of concern shading his expression. Okay, what is going on? She took a breath, feeling the familiar flutter of trepidation. How could she distill the enormity of her journey into words that would resonate with him? She motioned for him to sit, needing the grounding of their usual routine even in this moment of vulnerability. I've been thinking a lot about my past, my beliefs, everything I've accepted without question. Mark's brow furrowed deeper. What do you mean? Are you feeling all right with everything? No, it's more than that, she pressed, the urgency building inside her. Being in that group made me realize I've been living according to someone else's beliefs, and for the first time, I'm beginning to embrace my own thoughts. He leaned forward, concerned yet searching. What are you saying, Jessica? I don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. I'm finally beginning to understand that there is so much more to life and I want to explore it freely. Each word tumbled out, her heart racing, her own voice startling her as she articulated the long-buried desire to be liberated from the constraints of her past. Silence filled the room as the enormity of her revelation hung in the air between them. She could feel Mark processing her words, his brain undoubtedly rushing to reconcile this new information with the Jessica he had known for so long. Are you sure this is what you want? He finally asked, the gentleness of his tone belied by the tightness around his mouth. I've never been more sure, she declared, the resolve in her voice surprising even herself. But the truth is, I need your support. I need you to understand that this is about finding who I really am. Mark's face paled slightly, shadows of doubt momentarily flashing. But what about us? What will this mean for our future? His reaction grounded her fears, bringing an intensity she hadn't anticipated. She knew they were at a critical juncture. This was more than just a discussion about beliefs, it was about the foundation of their relationship. I don't know, she admitted, her voice trembling. But I can't hide this part of myself anymore. I need to grow, to become who I'm meant to be. If it doesn't involve us together, then. The weight of her words hung in the air, and for the first time, Jessica realized that change could bring both loss and unexpected freedoms. Could she find a path forward that integrated both her transformation and their relationship? Mark appeared conflicted, and this intersection of her past and her evolving self ignited the hope for a future amid uncertainty. You deserve to be happy, Jessica. But this isn't my truth, she interrupted, feeling a surge of empowerment as she looked at him directly. But can you still be part of it? Suddenly, she faced the unexpected depth of their emotional conflict, a chasm that seemed to widen with every heartbeat. Would he stand beside her as she sought this new identity, or was their love now resting precariously on the cliffs of her unconventional choices? As silence enveloped them, the weight of the moment deepened, and Jessica realized she was standing at the cliff's edge of her own reality, bracing for the plunge. Would Mark take the leap with her or pull away entirely? In her heart, she felt an urgency for a resolution, but even in this moment of crisis, could she dare to hope for understanding between them? Jessica held her breath, the silence lingering painfully between them. Mark's eyes surveyed her, revealing a storm of emotions that mirrored her own fear and determination. He blinked several times, as if trying to clear his thoughts. She could sense the gears turning in his mind, weighing the gravity of her revelation against their shared past. Jessica, I need time to process this, he finally said, each syllable a careful maneuver over a minefield of emotions. It's just a lot to take in. The words hit her like a chill wind. She had anticipated his need for time, but hadn't he prepared for the distance they created. She wanted to scream, to demand he immediately validate her choices, yet she felt an unexpected understanding creeping within her. How could she expect him to understand the depth of her transformation when she had only recently begun to grasp it herself? Of course, she managed, her voice trembling. But please believe me when I say this isn't just a whim. I have been living for someone else's narrative for so long. Now, it's time for my own story. Mark nodded slowly, his gaze dropping to the floor. She yearned to catch his eye again, to feel connected in this moment, but instead, she felt the gulf widen. She needed to find the words that would bridge the gap between who she was and who she was becoming. I've spent my life in fear of questioning what we believed. It's as if I've been locked in a cage, and every day I felt a little more suffocated. The community, the rules, the rituals, they all felt like a cloak I had to wear. Her words spilled out, each confession fueling her resolve. When she glanced at Mark again, his expression was unreadable, a mixture of apprehension and an effort for understanding. And now? He prompted. What does your freedom look like to you? Jessica paused, searching within herself for an answer. It felt daunting, imagining a future without the structure she had always known. I want to start fresh. Explore new ideas, meet different people, maybe even travel. The thought sent waves of exhilaration coursing through her. I want to truly learn about life before I chart my own path. Mark rubbed a hand over his chin, deep in thought. How do you think that fits with what we have, Jessica? Her heart raced again, the question weighing heavily on her chest. She craved his affirmation, the sense of security in their partnership, yet she recognized the tension stirring within them, a tension that echoed her own internal conflict. I don't know, but I feel like this is a journey we can navigate together, if you want to. The atmosphere thickened with unspoken words, and she realized, for the first time, that she had not only changed but that she was asking him to change with her. The prospect both thrilled and terrified her. I'm asking you to support my decision, to have faith in me, even if that faith leads to uncertainty. Mark's sigh was heavy. What if this leads you somewhere I can follow? They say the strongest bonds are the ones that allow room for each person to grow individually, she replied, her voice steadying. I want us to be strong enough to face whatever the future holds. But I can't do that if I'm still hiding. For the first time, a flicker of something, was it hope? Shone in Mark's eyes. I want that too, Jess. But it's going to take work. A lot of work. Then let us work together. A tentative smile crept onto Mark's lips, yet beneath it was a murky uncertainty. Jessica knew there was no definitive path, that this conversation would mark only the beginning of countless discussions and recalibrations of their lives together. But the initial steps were taken, and that in itself felt monumental. As they sat together in the dim light of the living room, Jessica pondered the winding road ahead. Would they find strength in each other's support, or would the effort highlight the fractures that had long lain hidden? When she glimmered up at Mark, a thought struck her: the journey of self-discovery was leading them both to an unexpected crossroads. Would they nurture their bond or break apart at the seams? As they continued to navigate their emotions, Jessica felt a surge of urgency. Change was not only inevitable, it would soon demand a face-to-face confrontation with her former community, a meeting that could alter her journey further than she had dared to imagine. She bit her lip, knowing this was just the beginning. Would she muster the courage to handle the repercussions of her choices, or would she retreat back into the shadows? And so, the true test lay ahead, one that would demand every ounce of resolve to confront those she had known for decades, unearthing potential conflicts she had yet to comprehend. The next morning, the light streamed into Jessica's bedroom, illuminating the corners that had remained dim for too long. It had been a restless night of tossing and turning, her thoughts heavy with doubt and anticipation. Today would mark a turning point. Today, she would face the very people who had shaped her existence, people whose approval she had sought for far too long. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she drew in a deep breath, attempting to steady her racing heart. Her decision had been made, but the weight of it loomed over her like a storm cloud. The confrontation with her community was not merely a meeting, it was an unveiling of her newfound identity, and she felt the pressure to perform if only to prove to herself that she had truly changed. Jessica dressed deliberately in a simple white blouse and jeans, wanting to evoke a sense of both professionalism and casualness. No longer would she drape herself in the relics of her past, a reminder of the persona she had so meticulously constructed. Instead, she aimed to embody this shift. Each article of clothing felt like a step toward release from everything she had once held dear. Her phone buzzed, and the familiar sound jolted her from reverie. A message from Mark appeared on the screen, "Thinking of you. Just remember, you're in control of your narrative." She smiled, momentarily buoyed by his unwavering support. With one final glance in the mirror, she acknowledged a fierce determination in her own eyes. It was time to step into her narrative. Arriving at the community hall felt like stepping into a pressure cooker. The air was thick with expectation, both hers and that of the congregation milling about, unaware of the tempest that had brewed within her. As she made her way through the crowd, she exchanged hesitant nods and forced smiles. It felt surreal to witness lives that had so closely mirrored her own, yet, now, they felt like strangers. She was welcomed with familiar greetings and warm embraces. For an instant, she grasped at nostalgia, but the shadow of uncertainty lingered. Jessica steeled herself as she approached a small group of her old friends. Their faces glowed with a mix of surprise and concern upon seeing her. "Jessica. It's so good to see you. We really missed you at the meetings," one woman exclaimed, her voice full of the warmth that once enveloped Jessica like a safety blanket. "Yeah, I've missed you too," Jessica replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Their kindness was a double-edged sword, provoking a longing for acceptance that she might never regain. As the conversations flowed around her like a warm stream, she felt the clock ticking. It was now or never. "Actually, I've come to talk about some things," she said, her tone commanding attention. The friendly chatter dwindled as skeptical eyes turned toward her. "Things? What do you mean?" a man questioned, crossing his arms defensively. Jessica knew she was treading into volatile territory, every breath a calculated move on the chessboard of her past. "I've been doing some thinking, deep thinking, and I realized that my journey has taken a different path than the one I was taught," she stated, each word dripping with honesty. "I want to share that with you." Expressions of confusion and concern morphed around her, and the air became even heavier. She felt vulnerable yet oddly powerful. This was her moment of self-expression, a declaration of independence. "I no longer subscribe to the beliefs that I once held so dear. I need to find my own way." The silence shattered. Questions erupted, igniting the energy in the room. "How can you say that?" one voice challenged, tinged with disbelief. "You've been one of us for years." Jessica inhaled sharply, the defiance rising within her like a tide. "And yet here I stand, here to confront my truth. I have a right to define my life." "We all do." Doubts hashed and rehashed in her mind. Was she strong enough to withstand their reactions? As chaos erupted in the group, Jessica held her ground, feeling both empowered and terrified. Her voice was a threat to her newly freed self, yet it was also a tether to the past that still lingered in their gazes. In the maelstrom of voices questioning her choices, she understood that this was only an opening dialogue. Her journey ahead would be filled with countless uncertainties. But this first step, this first stand had been taken. As she exited the hall, Jessica felt a mixture of exhilaration and fear coursing through her veins. The confrontation had unveiled layers she had yet to peel back, exposing an arena for deeper confrontations yet to come. She couldn't help but ponder the complexities of her relationships now. Would the storm of responses foster her independence, or would they drag her back to the constraints she longed to escape? The weight of reality pressed against her as she drove home, but within it was a glimmering possibility, the potential for self-redefinition. Yet, lurking beneath was another fear, one that loomed large. Would her journey lead her back to shadows she sought so fervently to leave behind, or towards a horizon she had only begun to envision? With this thought swirling in her mind, Jessica gripped the steering wheel, glancing ahead into the uncertain expanse. The road stretched before her, and as she navigated through it, she asked herself, what would her next confrontation unveil? With the engine's hum filling the car, Jessica wrestled with conflicting emotions. Each mile away from the community hall felt both liberating and constricting, a pendulum swinging between newfound freedom and uncharted territory. She fought against the urge to replay the meeting in her mind, to comb through every line she uttered, seeking solace in the validation of her stance. As she turned onto a quieter street, the looming streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, mirroring the uncertain path she now tread. She recalled the expressions of disbelief, the shifting dynamics her declaration had thrust her into, an arena of doubt, not just for her audience but also for herself. She steered toward the coffee shop, her usual sanctuary that had felt increasingly foreign of late. Sipping on her latte, Jessica sank into her favorite corner table, the familiar surroundings now suffocating. The comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods now felt like a lure, tempting her to revert to her past self. She stared at the surface of the dark liquid, swirling the froth, contemplating the threads of her identity that had unraveled before her. Jessica's own thoughts posed a harsher critique than any voice from the community. "Have I made a huge mistake?" she muttered, grappling with insecurities. This desire for authenticity weighed against the unease of standing out, of questioning foundations that had seemed so firmly set throughout her upbringing. She took a moment to gather her thoughts, identifying a hidden layer of apprehension. A realization rattled within her: she had been wearing a mask for so long, charading as someone she thought would garner love and acceptance. But this internal struggle revealed her distinct power, the ability to reshape her reality. Jessica recalled Mark's message and his unwavering belief in her potential. "You're in control of your narrative," he had said, his words echoing through her mind like a mantra. In that small moment of clarity, she felt a swell of resolve rising to the surface. How could she not grasp the control she had over her own story? Decision-making had spiraled into a reactive mode throughout her past. Today, she would plan and execute. Returning home, she made a beeline for her computer, the glow of the screen illuminating her determined face. Searching for groups that spoke of spiritual independence, she unearthed a network of individuals who had journeyed down a similar path. Their stories resonated, struggles and triumphs shaped in the crucible of defiance. Each testimonial felt like a lifeline tossed into her tumultuous sea of doubt. As she read, a delightful surge of empowerment surged through her. She began drafting her own story, writing not just for herself but also for the silent voices that yearned for a chance to speak their truths. With each stroke of the keyboard, Jessica felt layers of her former self peeling away, revealing the resilient core she was rediscovering. But new questions emerged, complicating her newfound clarity. What would happen when her family learned about her beliefs? Would they understand her evolution, or would it incite an antagonistic confrontation? The thought sent a chill down her spine, as she pondered the potential fallout from those pieces of her life intertwined with the beliefs she now challenged. She paused, struck by the weight of what she was contemplating. Perhaps this was the defining moment of her personal narrative, not merely the act of breaking free, but the journey of forging connections in unfamiliar territories. Her heart raced at the thought of establishing relationships grounded in authentic truth rather than obligation. Jessica leaned back in her chair, the click of keys ceasing alongside the rise and fall of her breath. The path ahead was crooked, yet invigorating, a blend of risk and reward woven together in a tapestry of discovery. She sensed the walls of her former self closing in behind her while the expanse of her potential loomed ahead, unexplored and inviting. The door swung open with a jingle as a familiar figure entered the coffee shop. It was Mark, and their eyes met with an unspoken understanding. But was she ready for this encounter? Before she could decide, a unity of anticipation and trepidation coursed through her. What could their conversation reveal about her transformations and the struggles yet to come? Jessica straightened her back, the weight of impending dialogue bearing down on her shoulders as she braced for the unexpected. The moment demanded courage and commitment, and she had a decision to make. What version of herself would she unveil to Mark today? Jessica held her breath as Mark approached, the weight of his gaze both anchoring and unsettling. The comfort she had initially found in their friendship was now intertwined with apprehension, each glance a potential for revelation or rejection. Would he recognize the subtle shift within her? Would he stand by her in this newfound authenticity or retreat into the familiar shadows of their shared past? "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. His tone was light, yet in the back of her mind, a current of tension thrummed. "How is it going?" His casual demeanor offered a momentary reprieve, but it felt flimsy against the backdrop of her turmoil. "Busy, you know," she replied, hoping her voice didn't quaver. "Been writing." Her admission was a calculated risk, a tiny fracture in the facade she had so carefully crafted. Mark's brow furrowed slightly, curiosity sparking. "Writing? About what?" In that moment, she had two choices: the safe route, which masked her turmoil under layers of jovial exchanges, or the perilous honesty, revealing corners of her soul where light had just begun to seep in. Trying to gauge his reactions, she opted for the latter, her heart pounding with each word. "About my beliefs," she started, each syllable a step towards a precipice. "And how they've changed." His silence felt heavy as he absorbed her statement. In his eyes, Jessica searched for clues about his true feelings. Would he dismiss her or engage with curiosity? "What do you mean by changed?" he pressed, leaning in with genuine interest. The question forced her to confront the multitude of layers within her own shifting identity. "I realized that I've been living a version of myself that I thought people wanted. I've been questioning everything, particularly the teachings I grew up with." There it was, her truth laid bare on the table between them. Mark's expression shifted to one of contemplation. "You mean, the faith you've always had?" Jessica nodded slowly. "For so long, it felt like a security blanket. But now I feel like it's suffocating me." A rush of exhilaration surged through her as she articulated thoughts she had hidden even from herself. "Wow. That is a big deal," he said finally, a mixture of concern and respect lacing his tone. "Have you talked about this with anyone else?" The question hung in the air, bringing forth the gravity of her decision to share this part of herself. "No one," she admitted. "I'm still processing, afraid of the backlash. I don't know if I can bear losing the support system I've had." Mark's eyes softened. "You're incredibly brave for even considering this shift. It's not easy to face that kind of change." His encouragement felt like a balm to her frazzled nerves. "Still, it feels like a risk," Jessica continued, urgency creeping back into her voice. "What if my family finds out? I'll be ostracized, cut off completely. They might even try to change my mind, maybe even shun me." At the mention of her family, a storm of conflict roiled within her. The thought of losing their connection weighed heavily, each potential consequence crafting threads of fear around her heart. But what awaited her on the other side of this challenging path felt equally enticing: freedom, authenticity, community with like-minded spirits. "You need to hold on to your truth, Jessica," Mark asserted, his confidence igniting a flicker of hope in her. "Don't let fear dictate your decisions. You deserve to live fully. You deserve to find people who embrace the real you." Jessica felt a shift within herself, a newfound courage emerging through the haze of uncertainty. "You're right," she breathed, contemplating his words. "I need to explore this more, to find those connections. But first, I have to confront the truth with my family." Mark's nod encouraged her onward, igniting a flicker of determination. The conversation served as a reminder that she wasn't alone, planting seeds of possibility now blossoming within her. As they continued to talk, Jessica understood that the path ahead was still filled with twists and darkness, presenting choices that would test her resolve. Conversations would lead to confrontations, and yet, the chance to build a life defined by her own choices filled her with an exhilarating urgency. But just as the weight of her resolve began to settle, another thought attacked her: the realization that she couldn't simply break away without a plan. What would her first step be? Jessica looked up at Mark, their dialogue suspended in a moment of shared understanding. The path before her nudged at her with both trepidation and excitement. Decisions loomed on the horizon, ready to shape her identity irrevocably. "Mark," she began, her curiosity surging with a newfound intensity. "What if there's a way to plan a safe approach for this conversation with my family? To do it with purpose." As his eyes met hers, electricity flickered in the air between them. Together, they were on the brink of something profound, an approach unfolding before them that could illuminate her path forward. The quest to reclaim her narrative had only just begun. What would their next step be? Jessica awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, her heart racing in anticipation of the day ahead. The sun streamed through her curtains, casting a warm glow that felt promise-laden. She had spent the previous hours contemplating both her conversation with Mark and the confrontation with her family that was destined to come. Today, she would not just face her past, she would dismantle it to reveal the vibrant truth of her identity. In the stillness of her kitchen, she prepared coffee as the familiar ritual steadied her nerves. Yet this time, it was more than a routine, it embodied her commitment to a newfound autonomy. Each sip fortified her resolve, a reminder that she had the strength to reclaim her narrative. She was ready to let her voice echo through the corridors she had once feared. At school, a sense of urgency enveloped her, the walls of her classroom now a safe haven where she felt equipped to inspire not only her students but herself. During lunch, she proactively engaged her colleagues in discussions on personal growth and transformation. To her delight, their responses sparked dynamic conversations, each story shared, a testament that would reinforce her path forward. But as the workday ended, she felt the weight of reality return. Her family awaited her, their ties a complex labyrinth she had to navigate. The looming confrontation tugged at her heart. Would they comprehensively understand her emergent self? That evening, she gathered her family around the table, an act that felt equal parts daunting and necessary. The atmosphere hummed with the usual activity, yet perpetually the silence stirred at her center. She sensed their trust, it was time to shake that foundation. "Can we talk?" she began, her voice steady, yet sufficiently soft to bridge the gap she felt widening every time she considered who she had become. Mark's supportive presence at her side infused her with additional strength. Her parents exchanged glances of concern and recognition that she was about to relay something significant. "It's about my beliefs, the church, everything that shaped my upbringing," she disclosed, watching for their reactions. This moment would set a precedent not just for her family dynamics, but her inner transformation. "Jessica, what are you saying?" her mother asked softly, the love evident, yet laced with apprehension. "We've always been part of a supportive faith that has guided us." "I know. And I appreciate everything, Jessica responded. But I can no longer align myself with the beliefs that dictated so much of my identity. I need to explore who I am beyond those ideas. I have to ask questions and find clarity. Stunned silence enveloped the table, the familiar comfort of their family dynamic feeling precarious now. In that charged moment, Jessica recognized the essence of her liberation. She was no longer the quiet girl redefining herself against the ideals molded by others. She was forging her own identity, ready to withstand scrutiny. That's a lot to take in, her father finally said, his tone measured but intent. Have you considered how this may affect your life, your family? I have, and that is why I'm here, she affirmed, emboldened by truth. This is about my personal journey. I want you all to be a part of it, but if you don't support it, I can change what I've discovered about myself. As they contemplated her words, Jessica felt urgency surging through her veins. She was stepping into uncharted territory. With every heartbeat, she saw herself evolving from whispers of fear to proclamations of truth. We have always loved you, Jessica, her mother began, empathy threading through her voice. Regardless of your journey, we are here. But it is unfamiliar ground for us too. I know, Jessica responded, but this exploration, this desire for authenticity will only strengthen our bond. I want to share this unfiltered self with you. I will learn and grow alongside your love. Eventually, their conversation morphed into heartfelt exchanges, as they revealed their own struggles to comprehend these new realities. The room shifted. From resistance to understanding, a supporting dialogue intertwined with acceptance. By the end of that evening, Jessica sat in her room, her breath escaping from her lips in a gust of relief. The impending storm had passed, but the clouds of uncertainty still hovered in the horizon. In truth, the confrontation would lead to more heart-to-heart dialogues, family dynamics would evolve, and she was prepared for the journey that lay ahead. Days turned into weeks, and each confrontation with uncertainty became a stepping stone toward transformation. Jessica learned to navigate her emerging autonomy with grace and resilience, venturing out as her own voice gained strength and legitimacy. Each new connection she forged brought affirmation and encouragement, reinforcing her decision to stand firm in her beliefs. Then came the moment she had been waiting for, a public speaking opportunity at a community event. As she prepared her speech, recounting her journey of self-discovery, Jessica felt the thrill of empowerment coursing through her. Standing before an audience, she had a chance to share her narrative, to let her truth light the way for others who sought connection in the shadows of uncertainty. With each word she spoke, focusing on transformation, acceptance, and the strength found in vulnerability, Jessica could feel the applause resonating through her. She was not merely recounting her struggle, she was proclaiming her identity and celebrating the strength that had emerged from it. By the conclusion of her speech, Jessica stepped down from the podium, a wave of exhilaration crashing over her. She had achieved something significant not only for herself but for others who could empathize with her journey. It was in that moment she realized she had conquered something far greater than fear. She had reclaimed her voice, affirmed her identity, and established herself as a beacon of hope for those still searching for clarity. As the applause subsided and conversations buzzed around her, consumers of her story congratulated and expressed gratitude. What lay ahead was still unknown, but she no longer approached it with trepidation. Jessica understood her worth, and she wasn't afraid to redefine her life according to her terms. She had become the architect of her own narrative. And as she looked ahead into a world brimming with opportunities, she knew unequivocally, she had transformed from the shackles of conformity into the empowering embrace of self-discovery. To those following along in their own journeys, the time to embrace personal transformation is now. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for others' journeys. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending because your insights matter. And please, Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to spread this message of personal overcoming.